To please Allah, a chance to gain reward, I will spend on you, he says, all who spend in good cause. Good deeds are opportunities, sparkling bright and true, raising you in the sight of Allah and adorning Al-Jannah for you. So rush to earn his reward, don't forget the oppressed, and when you go to sleep at night.
Bismillah, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulil kareem, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi, wa man tabi'a sunnatuhu ila yawmiddin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. It's a welcome from your host, Gabriel Al-Romaani.
And your host?
Ismail Bullock. And inshallah this week we're going to continue on the topic of the role model. I mean, we mentioned last week generally about bad role models and the kind of effects they have on people and how we should select a good role model. So this week inshallah we're going to focus on righteous role models.
Right. And we have some guests coming in.
Yeah, we have a couple of young guests coming in, you know.
We try to always make it a bit interesting. And
especially for these kind of topics, because a lot of people who have, as we discussed before, a lot of people who have the problem with the role models are the youngsters.
Yeah, the youngsters. They're the ones who are concerned about this.
Especially in the teenagers. That's why we've got a couple of guests around the age of 13 and 16, just to see the different, their views on, or, you know. Just
I like to hear what they say, you know, like sincerely, just to pick their brains and really get to understand, you know, what's going on in their world, you know, subhanAllah. Because things change. I mean, since we were 13 or teenagers, things have changed. Even though a lot of things are the same, I see trends, but things have definitely changed a lot, alhamdulillah. And we're going to see a short clip today as well. We just kind of went on the street and talk to some people and, you know, see what they think about role models and who their role models are. And
that's what we said. I mean, that's what we want to do as well in the show, is we want to give it a bit of diversity, you know, have inshallah every week a guest or guests on the show on various topics, of course. Have some interviews with some people out there, as you said.
And we need to hear from the viewers.
All the viewers,
right?
Yes. I mean, obviously, we remind you again that you can call us in the final segment, inshallah, of the show. Or any time during the show, you can obviously send us on the Facebook. If you haven't liked our Facebook page yet, it's obviously facebook.com/time to please Allah. Please, you know, like the page. You can send us messages through the page or comments on the page, and we can also read them, inshallah.
Right.
We'd look forward to you guys calling, of course.
And so today specifically we're going to talk about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a bit in the Sahaba and different positive role models. So Ismail, let me ask you again, as I asked you last time, who's your role model?
I mean, no doubt, inshallah, as a Muslim, role model, you know, firstly is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I mean, of course, that's the politically correct thing to say, but I think in general, for most of us, even if we're Muslims who are, you know, we're not practicing that much, but, you know, we pray, we have some, you know, we have the love for Islam, but we have our weaknesses, you know, we may not be that committed. I think deep down, if you were to ask them, I mean, who else can they look up to, really?
Right.
I mean, of course, we can look at other prophets and, like, we can, you know, mention companions and scholars, but ultimately, I think everybody would say that the role model is and should be the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
So, who else other than the Prophet? From the prophets, for example, who else do you?
Oh, we could take many.
Like specific, who's like kind of like gets, you know.
I've always liked the story of Yusuf alayhi salam.
Yusuf. Why did you pick the name Ismail? I mean, was Ismail?
Actually, funny enough, it wasn't anything to do. When I first became Muslim, as I mentioned in the first episode, when I was about 14, my friends back then said to me, "You should have a Muslim name," and they said, "How about Ismail?" You know, and I don't know, I like the sound of it. They told me this, you know, Ishmael, son of Abraham, and I thought, okay, I like the sound of it as well. Yeah. So I just took it, you know, took it from then. But definitely, you know, subhanallah. Surah Yusuf, always like hearing the story, you know, subhanAllah, of, you know, the jealousy between the brothers and the plan to, you know, throw him down the well, and how he was, you know, how he was found, subhanAllah, and
The forgiveness in the end.
And the whole story of resisting the temptation.
Which something that everyone can relate to.
And I think many people probably would fail in that kind of test. Alhamdulillah. So definitely we can take lessons from that.
How about from the Sahaba?
From the Sahaba, they're just too many. Subhanallah. I mean, what
just one person,
springs to mind right now, and is very, subhanallah, very, I can't think of the word, very amazing, very powerful, and which just sprung to my mind literally right now, when you said Sahaba, is the time when Umar radiallahu anh, when he'd been stabbed, and he was dying, and he asked his son to twist his head or put his head onto the sand. So he said, let me die in prostration to my Lord. Most of us would be, help me, help me, and we'd all obviously, because death is and he would have been in extreme pain, but he was thinking, let me make that last sujood.
So he turned his head towards. It's funny they say that Omar Khattab is my favorite role model. Somehow I always find myself talking about Omar. Omar did this, Omar did that, Omar. From the Sahaba. From the Prophets, subhanallah, Musa alayhi salam, Ibrahim alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam, and Nuh. For some reason, I don't know, I have a connection with these. And of course, Yusuf, subhanallah. But I'm always somehow, find myself talking or thinking about these prophets, subhanallah. And their stories are just amazing. And subhanAllah, these you can relate to, you can take, and that's the one thing that I think, I want to kind of, talk about today is that, when you have a role model, as opposed to, for example, and I've talked to a lot of Christians, a lot of times, I had an excellent discussion with a Christian last weekend, and, one thing that always comes to mind is that, because of the way they think about Isa alayhi salam, Jesus, it's hard to take him as a full role model, right? Because of their theology about who, A'udhu Billah, Isa is. But subhanAllah, for a Muslim, actually, you'll find that actually Isa alayhi salam, for example, is a greater role model to us. Why? Because of his human characteristics that we emphasize. Of course, he was a prophet. He was amongst the best humans. But nonetheless, he was a human, right? Which makes it very simple for someone to relate to and to be able to imitate or to follow. So if you find the Muslims, will grow the beard, the Muslims will circumcise, the Muslims will fast, all these things that Isa alayhi salam did, the Muslims will do, and you find that most Christians will not do that, subhanAllah. And the same with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all the prophets, because they're human beings that walk this earth, and A'udhu Billah, there's no, A'udhu Billah, association or deity type of, of characteristics associated to them. Alhamdulillah, it's so easy. And you'll find in their stories that there's always something that someone can relate to in their own lives, And you can say, well, Musa alayhi salam did, or Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did it, or Isa alayhi salam did, And you'll find somehow that, subhanAllah, and it just gives you this closeness to these amazing, blessed people, subhanAllah.
SubhanAllah, definitely, obviously Allah says in the Quran that in their qasas there is an ibrah for ulul albab, for those people of understanding. But if you look in the Quran, so many times, even the prophets, they were role models for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the sense, you see Allah continuously reminding Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the believers that the people before you.
That is something amazing.
That they had severe struggles until that until they said, when will the Nasr of Allah, when will this victory of Allah come? So this was always, subhanAllah, reminding the Prophet ﷺ that the people before you, they came with the same message. They all came with that one message to worship only Allah, Tawheed, and they went through the same problems. So Allah is continuously, we see throughout the Quran saying this to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the believers, that those prophets and those people with him, because the verses say, may the verses say, the prophets and
those who were with
him, the ones who were with him, that they were struggling, suffering. So subhanAllah, even for the Prophet ﷺ, from this sense, he could take them as role models or learn from their the way they carried themselves, the way they had patience, and it would, make him stronger and more firm.
Something, subhanAllah, very important when it comes to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When I first became Muslim, and subhanAllah, we find, and we talked a lot about it, and actually in my field, in the work that we're involved in da'wah and the research that we're doing, we find ourselves that most of the time we have to somehow do research and defend certain aspects or events from the seerah of the Prophet, right? Because people, they use a certain measuring stick that it's in conformity with today's society and today's norms, right? So when people look at the life of Prophet Muhammad and try to take lessons, it takes a lot of reason and rationale to analyze and to be able to know how to hold one's emotions, right? And I found it that when I first became Muslim and people were telling me things about Prophet Muhammad, that don't you know that this happened in the seerah or this happened in the seerah, and subhanAllah, I used to think a lot about it, and I used to analyze it based on events that are happening around in the world, right? And subhanAllah, I found that the life of Prophet Muhammad, it deals with real life situations. It's not something that is, from some kind of fairy tale or story, that you see, that it's like, televised or something like that. That it's specifically dealing with real life situations. Things that, not just always, the sweet, but there's the salty and the bitter and so on. It's such a comprehensive, if you want to use probably the best word, way of living. And it has an aspect that deals with every single situation in the life of a human being, that you'll find some inspiration or some advice or some lesson in his life. And that's one thing that gave me extra faith, because people used to come and say, what about this and what about that? I said, what, there's no problem with that. Actually, the fact that he did that shows to me that he is a prophet. This is a proof actually for his prophet. This is a proof for him in being a real human being, a real person who knows how to deal with these situations, who knows how to handle real life situations, not all kinds of fairy tale type of situation that we see today, that people are really brainwashed with the media, and that's what changes that measuring stick to understand what is right and what is wrong, what should be done in life and and that's why you say when people, as you talked about calamities and people suffering from, when people face these issues, they can't deal with them because they think it's like in a movie. They think that everything's going to be fine in the end, and everything's going to, the boy is going to meet the girl and they're going to fall in love and get married in the end or whatever they have, and everyone's going to find somehow things will just work out fine. And they face these calamities or different issues and they can't deal with them. And there's depression and all kinds of things, subhanAllah. So that was something that really, attracted me and put me, in line and following the Prophet ﷺ and really believing firm in his example, subhanAllah.
Well, that's what you've said. Is basically it, right? That's what we say. We say Islam is not. We don't really say Islam is a religion.
Yes.
We say it's a way of life.
It's a way of life, yes.
Because it covers everything, and like you said, so many incidents
yes.
we can relate to. We can, this happens in your life. You can most likely go back into the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and find a very similar. How did he act? What did he tell people to do?
Right.
What did he give you the Islamic ruling in this kind of situation? Yes. Whereas if we look at other beliefs, they, like you said, they have a very vague, hearsay kind of story, and
right.
Maybe certain prophets lived a very short life, so they don't have anything to turn back to. What we have to,
And something very important that just pops into mind right now, just a basic thing when it comes to divorce, right? The Prophet ﷺ, there was incidents of divorce, and he talked about it and addressed it, right? So we know how to deal in these issues when it comes to these issues. There's no doubt, there's no confusion, there's nothing. For example, when you look into the certain churches, right? They have a doctrine, till death do us apart, right? You find that people are forced with doing what? Because it's not natural, they're forced with now changing the religion. So they have to change the religion. And so many states and countries that follow, this state religion have had to change the religion. Because there was nothing addressing that issue. And people, they're like, listen, we just can't live together. We need to, so what? Am I not a good, follower of this religion if I'm going to do this? So they're faced with having to change the religion because there's no way out. There's no ruling. There's no example. There's no way that's been exemplified by their prophets or or so on. So that's something very important, subhanAllah.
I mean, subhanAllah, what just came in my mind now is, slightly off a topic, but I mean, even if you look at the longest verse in the Quran,
right,
is dealing with lending money.
Right.
So, we know that the Sunnah, the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, complement the Quran.
Yes.
They go together.
Together, yes.
If we just took the Quran, like some people say, all we need is the Quran, nothing else, then the Quran says establish prayer.
Right.
But then,
how
do you establish prayer?
Right. How many
times a day? What do you do? Where do you put your hands? What do you say?
Right.
So they both complement
yes.
each other perfectly. And I mean, like I said, if we look into we see the Prophet ﷺ, he went through mockery.
Yes.
You could say bullying.
Bullying, yeah.
He was bullied by the Quraysh.
Yes.
Look how he dealt with it. We can say he went through times of distress. We know he did.
Right.
Look how we have examples how he dealt with it. We see that he went through times where he could have taken revenge and become angry, and I'm sure we'll have examples a bit later on in the show, but he remained calm.
Right.
When he could have easily just, like many of us, he could have just dealt with it there and then. But
and then in other instances, he actually, retaliated. Right? Because some people might take only one side and not the other side. And I've had people come to me like, well, it's all about, I can't forgive, or, don't I have a right, or something like that. So no, there's, it's like a balance, you know what I mean? There's something for everyone, subhanAllah.
So all those different examples that we come into in life, inshallah, we can find something within the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ and take him as the role model. How did he act? Or what did he ﷺ say in such a situation? Or should you fall into such a thing, what should you do? What should you say? We have, if anyone knows the famous dua book, Hisn al-Muslim, the Fortress of the Muslim, it's full of du'as for when you're feeling stressed, upset, angry, scared, terrified,
whatever it is.
Whatever, all these different situations that you go through, whether good or bad, you have a dua there, you have a supplication, you have an answer, you have this. The Prophet ﷺ with his sunnah is perfect role model from that angle.
MashaAllah.
And inshallah, we're going to go for a break now, but when we come back from the break, we'll have a short clip for you to watch of the interviews as well as our guests.
Inshallah.
So join us after the break. I think this is it.
Time to please Allah, a chance to gain reward. I will spend on you, he says.
فلا وربك لا يؤمنون حتى يحكموك فيما شجر بينهم ثم لا يجدوا في أنفسهم حرجا مما قضيت ويسلموا تسليما. There are 3 levels. Sister Rayhan from Bahrain.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Fahim from Sweden. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. Barakallah feek, Fahim. May Allah bless you and your family.
Sheikh, I have one question.
Now, that is not allowed. Why isn't allowed? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man ghasha falaysa minna." He who deceives or betrays does not belong to us. He's not one of us. A person who is given the sadaqah or leading the prayer does not have necessarily to be praying fard. Maybe he's praying the nafl that is after the prayer, the 2 sunnah after dhuhr or after maghrib or after isha. And the follower, the imam, will be praying with the intention of offering the fard that he has missed. Okay, barakallahu feek.
Welcome to Tech Talk. I'm your host, Omar Shear. This season of Tech Talk, we will focus specifically on the internet.
A student would type their paper, and instead of handing me a hard copy of their paper, they would upload it to this learning system, this e-learning system.
I have some great experience when it comes to technology, and in particular, internet technology. Call to action is something that we do in our day-to-day lives, and maybe we don't realize it. Now we want to discuss After you have a product and you have a website and you have a way to communicate with your customers, which would be your email marketing system, now it's time to take the money from the customer.
Time to please Allah, a chance to gain reward. I will spend on you, he says, on who's spending good cause.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. Time to please Allah here on Huda TV. And just before the break, we were having a good discussion about role models, about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, talking about the relationship that we can establish with him and following him, and how we can connect to his example, and how the practical things from daily life that everyone could actually see and imitate, and so on. And we have in the studio today with us two special guests, and we'd like to have them introduce themselves.
I'm Abdurrahman, son of Ismail.
MashaAllah. Okay.
And
I knew that already, but yeah. And how old are you?
I'm 13 years old.
MashaAllah. Grade
9.
MashaAllah. And
I'm Hisham, son of Jafar.
MashaAllah.
I'm 16 years
somewhere
old.
in the back.
Somewhere in the back, yeah.
Yes. How old are you?
16 years old.
16, MashaAllah. Okay. So guys, same question. Who are your role models and why?
I've got a few role models, but I've got a few role models, not many of them, not really famous role models. For example, I've got some teachers at school. They're really, they know how I can relate with them.
Okay, like who?
They understand.
Which teacher?
I've got
if you don't mind.
there are a few of them. I've got an ICT teacher.
Okay.
The Arabic teacher. They're really understanding.
MashaAllah. And I know that you're in a new school, right? So
Yeah.
obviously it's
So they're helping me
new.
get used. Yeah.
Okay. MashaAllah. So they're helping you. Why do you take them as role models? What's
because
special about them?
they understand me and they know how I can relate to them. For example, if I have any problems, I can just discuss it with them, and they can work it out for me.
So they're easily approachable.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the ICT teacher. Anyone else other than teachers?
Yeah, I think that's it.
What about, okay, obviously this is given, as we said, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but anyone from the Sahaba or from the scholars that you...
Umar al-Khattab, he's a really strong character.
Okay.
For example, when he was leading, he was always strong and he had a really good sense of justice.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Hisham, how about you? Your role models?
Yeah. For me, it's kind of like there are some people you meet in your life, some people that are more like father figures or mentor you. Like you always have this one teacher who's teaching you, who isn't just a teacher in the classroom, but outside the classroom he discusses different topics with you and he guides you. There's always this one teacher. Everybody can probably relate to that. There are people I interact with on weekly basis or on a daily basis. There are always a few teachers here and there who, like he said, you can relate to them. Because now it's right, I agree that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is a role model, is an example for all of us. Right? But in our day and age, in our situation, there are always certain people that you can relate to, you can discuss with, and they're kind of like father figures to you, mentors to you.
Right.
And it's not like you can only have one role model. You have many. And the reason that people say, some people may say, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, we don't know who he is. We can't exactly relate to him. That's why he can't be a role model to us.
Well, this is a problem. This is one of the reasons why people don't take Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as a role model, because they don't actually know who the Prophet ﷺ was. Right? They hear things here and there, and this is I've discussed this with many people many times. I said, as an ummah, we really don't know that much about Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. We hear the stories that we hear in school and so on, but we don't know that much.
Yeah, but the thing is, when people, they pick the wrong things from reading his seerah even.
Okay.
When they read his seerah, maybe they say, wow, he was an amazing leader, or wow, he was an amazing this. But it's these little things that really show you what his personality was, these unique things. In hadith, you hear somebody will come and say, سَمِعْتُ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم يقول, I heard Rasulullah say this. And sometimes you see amazing things like, he puts his arm around my shoulder and he said, Ya ghulam, inni u'allimuka kalimat. You know, you come to someone with a problem, because sometimes your parents don't understand. You go to someone with a problem and you say, you know, there's a problem. Instead of judging you, they put their arm around you and say, you know what, listen to me. You know, these are the kind of people. These are the unique characteristics. There are always unique people, you know, you meet who you see they stand out. They've come through difficulty. They stand out. They try to relate to you. They try to connect with you. And that's what Rasulullah that's why he was a role model to the people around him, first of all, because he could connect with them. And the thing is, even if we, as an ummah, we've gone so far away that we can't connect with him, he used to cry in nights praying for us, yeah, you know, my ummah, my ummah. Right. And he could connect with us. Every word that he says, it's all recorded. Yes. And everything he said is relevant to us. Yes. The advice is given is not just for the Sahaba, it's for us. And the problem is, you know, in psychology, there's this concept of not giving someone a role model that's too amazing, because then they think it's too difficult to become that.
Right, that's what we're kind of talking about.
Yeah, and because the thing is, in the seerah, people pick up the great things about him, which are true, but they forget that at the end of the day, he's a human being. Right. And they forget the times of sadness, you know, when he cried, and these other things that they miss out, it makes him seem like some kind of super-powered human that you can never really reach, you know, his standard. So it's more like we've missed the point. You know, that's what I feel. If we take the correct things from his seerah, we can feel like, obviously we can, none of us can ever say that we are like the Prophet ﷺ, but we can try.
I mean, even taking a few things from his life, you would fall short of you know, greatness. I mean, you know, falling short of greatness is just amazing. You know.
What a point Hisham made about people look at the very big things. Something that just came to mind when you said that is, you know, even if we look at the very simple things, you know, how the Prophet ﷺ would help his family at home doing the washing and cooking and these things. Something very easy to implement. Something else that came to mind was, which is when you said psychology, which Jibril as a teacher would obviously know about this, is that the Prophet ﷺ would always mention, when he wanted to emphasize something or teach something, he'd mention it 3 times. And now in psychology, you know, obviously the Muslims don't realize this though, so you'll have these Muslims attending courses on, you know, these motivational speakers or these performance, or whatever they might call them, to enhance their performance at work or at college, university, and there'll be the professor there, Mr. John Smith, whatever, will be saying, you know, we have to, you know, it's been proven that by mentioning 3 times that the knowledge is absorbed and everything is dealt with better. And this is true. And this is from the Prophet. This is something 1,400 years ago. But we as Muslims are like, wow, this is good. And I'm not joking, most of these business management courses, self-improvement courses, if you really look at it, analyze it, you're like, that's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ.
Yes, it's funny you're saying that.
That's a statement of one of the Sahaba. Right. That's another teaching of the Prophet ﷺ, over and over again. All of these things, you know, even now they say, when you teach, you need to teach, you need to, you know, speak, you need to give, you know, visual examples. Right. And you see the Prophet ﷺ, when he drew the straight line, visual. When he pointed to, when they heard the mother bird was screeching for the chick that one of the Sahaba had taken, and he pointed, showed them. So he was doing this visual or he would say, do you see this woman over there? How, you know, Allah is more merciful to us than that mother is to her baby. Right. So this is all the visual. So this is role model in our education, in our self-improvement, but we don't realize that. We hear all these techniques and we're like amazed and we think, wow, but we don't even know this is one of the...
It's like there are things that always you pick, even subconsciously, somebody you think is like an amazing person, like, wow, this person, he did this, you know? And these are the kind of people we pick for our role models. We say, you know, I want to do that one day. And that's the thing. We read the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ as if it's some kind of story, and we forget to be amazed by some things. You know, a woman comes to Rasulullah ﷺ, she says, I want to divorce my husband, even though he has these good qualities, this is the bad quality. Instead of asking her, no, you can't, or why? He says, I trust your judgment. You know, we didn't say, wow, he didn't judge her. He didn't, you know, think bad of her. He straight away said, you know, it's your choice. These small things that we pick up, if we are amazed by someone, immediately we think, man, we got to be like that person. If we're not amazed, then how can we ever think, people say, following the sunnah is so important, but the thing is that how can we follow the sunnah when we are not amazed by his way of life? Before being amazed by his way of life, it's very difficult to make yourself, do what he did until you really believe that this guy was awesome. I have to be like him.
I want to just mention something that you said and disagree with it maybe. And, and I want to hear what Abdurrahman has to say about this. But you said that some people miss out the small things, and they focus a lot on the big things. And sometimes these things cannot be achieved. Now, obviously, we need to pick and look into the details and the small things. How did the Prophet behave with his family? How did he mend his shoes? How the little girl took him by hand and walked him around Medina, pointing that this is a problem, that a problem. Obviously, these are important. But I would say that it's equally, maybe even more important for us, as Muslims, and even as a young teenager, to look at the great things the Prophet did, such as leadership and so on, and aspire to become something great like that. What do you think, Abdurrahman?
I think that a lot of people, they don't pay attention to it because they're too busy paying attention to all these other people who they think are good, but they're not really good. For example, you have all these singers, you think they're good because they're famous, they get all the money, but you don't know what's happening really, how depressed they are, how depressed they are, and how sad they are, and how they think this will give them happiness, but it's not really happiness. And how the Prophet ﷺ, he was always happy with what he was doing with the religion.
So before I want to continue with this in a second, and I want to disagree with Isha because we have a history of disagreeing even on our past show, but we have to take a break, and we're back and we'll talk more to the guests, inshallah. We're also waiting for your phone calls, inshallah. So let's see you right after this.
Where's our water?
See, over the last decade is that people have a big trend of following role models, which are basically Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, and all this. And we have seen this trend ever growing even in the latest Hollywood industries as well. Today I would like to focus on role models that we try our best to follow, which is Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
I want to ask you a very important question today. Who's your favorite superhero? Who's your favorite legend? Who's your favorite hero that you inspired to be like? If your answer is Batman, Superman, or wrestler, or a singer, then I would tell you to rethink.
My favorite role model among the Sahabas is Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, for a couple of reasons. First of all, he was one of the early converts to Islam. If you want to know what friendship is about, you need to know the friendship between Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
What's your name?
Amira.
Amira. What's your name?
Iman.
Amira, who's your role model?
Khadija radiallahu anha.
And why?
Because she was Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's wife, and she was the first lady to believe in Islam.
And would you like to be like her when you grow up?
Yes, inshallah.
Always, as humans, we're always assessing ourselves to see if we're successful, if we're not successful. Are we good people? Are we bad people? We're always assessing ourselves. We're always looking in the mirror and checking, are you good looking, are you not? And when we look at ourselves in the mirror, when we assess ourselves, we always compare ourselves to an ideal. You may not know that you have an ideal, you may not know, but you have a role model. And it's up to you to choose the correct role model.
Basically, when we read over his life cycle, what he did for the orphans, for the poor people, and for everyone, we get to learn a lot of messages. And even people now try their best to actually follow the role model. He is a mercy to mankind. You can see clearly in all areas, in terms of business, in terms of family, being a father, in terms of how to treat children, in terms of how to treat relatives, how to treat people on the street. We have the best of the examples. And even till now, people are really researching how this guy has, Prophet ﷺ lived his life, and how he became a role model to which is over 4 million Muslims actually at the moment.
We have, alhamdulillah, far more greater personalities who are real men, real heroes, like Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr Siddiq, Umar, Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhum, and the pious predecessors that followed, like Ka'ka and Abu Dujana and Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas. Wallahi, these were heroes who were real men, and they fought for the real cause, and they had the best of akhlaq and the manners. So I hope, inshallah, we emulate them so that we will be loved by Allah like Allah had loved them, and eventually be the real superheroes who make it to Jannah. Because superheroes are the one who help others go to Jannah, and they themselves go to Jannah as well, through their character and through their tawheed.
He also gave his own daughter in marriage to the Prophet ﷺ, and in this way he became his relative also. And he was there with the Prophet ﷺ even during his hardest times, even during the Hijrah. So among the Sahabas, he's one of the favorite that I admire.
You assess yourself, you compare yourself to someone who is a very good person. You will say, oh, I'm deficient, I'm not good enough. I need to be more like that person. I need to work towards it, I need to work hard. This will drive you to become like that person, to aspire towards something good. And we all have role models subconsciously, but we don't know it. And it is upon us to find out who it is and to change it to someone good. As Allah says in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. You have in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ a great example to follow. And he is supposed to be the role model for all of us. Someone who we compare ourselves to and see that we are deficient. So inshallah, that's the importance of having a role model.
Who's your role model? Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And why?
He's kind and he loves children and he gives Quran.
So he's kind, yeah? You like him because he's kind, mashallah? So you want to be like him when you grow up?
Yes.
MashaAllah. Thank you so much. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. And that was a cute clip, mashallah. Especially the kid in the end, mashallah. His sister's whispering to him. Okay, so just before we watch that clip, I was talking to Abdurrahman and basically about the great things that the Prophet ﷺ did. And do you think that your peers today, your friends, and so on, do Muslims aspire to become like the next great leader, the next great Muslim inventor, the next great like someone? I'm not talking about like on just the national level. We're talking about here like a world-renowned person, like those big things that they'll bring back Islam, that they will basically be the biggest da'is or anything like that. Do people aspire for these things, or are they satisfied with just staying here and their small things? Sorry.
That's the thing, that they don't think about becoming the most da'i, bringing back Islam. They don't usually think about it. They just think, get an ordinary life, normal job, normal everything.
Yeah, because a lot of people think that, okay, I'm a Muslim, I pray 5 times a day.
Yeah.
And alhamdulillah,
yeah,
these are the
that's
small
enough
things,
to like.
and it's enough. And of course, these are great things and amazing things. And we hope that, inshallah, all Muslims, inshallah, will pray the 5 daily prayers, inshallah. But, Tariq ibn Ziyad, when he opened Al-Andalus, he was 18 years old, right? He was still a teenager, right? So we find some of these great examples in history that took, Umar ibn Umar, radiallahu anhu, the son of Umar Khattab, I mean, who was he? The great man. Aisha radiallahu anha, when the Prophet ﷺ died, you know how old she was? When the Prophet ﷺ died, she was 18. She was 18, subhanAllah. So, and who was she? She was one of the greatest faqihs that we have in the ummah. So, they looked at the great things, and I think that's what we need today when we look at great role models and even the Prophet ﷺ. We need to think big. We need to really think big and not settle just for. Of course, we pay attention to the small things, as you said, and they're important. But let's think big. We need to. Do people think that I want to be the next, great leader or so on?
That's the thing. You see, you were talking about how you had these great leaders and they were really young, 18 when they opened Andalus, and when Prophet ﷺ died, they were really young. And people here, they think, and most of the youth, they think, oh, I'm going to pray when I'm old, it's okay, now I'll have fun in my life. Later on I'll work, I'll go on my bed, I'll pray 5 times a day. And all these things, they think that's later on in their life, and they don't know when they will die. You see, and they think I'll just do all this later on. When you have the Prophet ﷺ's companions, they were young and they would do all these great things. And nobody strives for that nowadays.
So what is one thing that, from the Prophet ﷺ that you really, really aspire to be like, from his character, from Hisham?
Oh, Hisham, yeah. There are many things, things that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, other than being selected as the messenger of Allah and the revelation being sent down to him, other than those amazing things, you know, there are some really small things that are very amazing. And I agree with you.
Are you refuting me now?
I'm not refuting you. I agree with you. I agree with you that we do have to dream big, and just looking at the small things isn't enough. I completely agree with you. The only thing is that, you know, sometimes when you see somebody who's so amazing, you think it's impossible for me to become that good. And you have to start somewhere. You know, I think one thing that really is, you know, inspiration from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one thing really is the way he dealt with other people. Because sometimes we get lost in our worship and seeking knowledge, and we have such an amazing relationship with Allah, and then we go and we're rude to our parents, or then, you know, we insult somebody. Like the relationship between Allah and the relationship with other people, there were two things he balanced, and getting that balance right is very difficult sometimes. You know, there was a woman, so they said that she was sawama qawama. She used to fast in the days and pray in the nights, but she used to insult her neighbor. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that hiya finnar. So, you know, it's difficult, but these things, you know, even somebody who's not a Muslim, he's so kind to people. Insulted him and he was nice to them. That is really difficult. When the anger comes in, you just want to, but you know, control.
We're going to continue this debate outside. But just very fast before we go into a break, Abdurrahman, one thing from the Prophet.
I like the way how he used to like care for others, and as he said, like he used to care for others, and for example, he used to care for others, and the way like they would insult him, and he would just ignore it, pretend like it doesn't happen, and
he was very tolerant.
Yeah, like his neighbor, for example, where the woman, where she would always like dump the contents of her rubbish and the garbage and thing outside his house, and he would just ignore it, pretend it's not there. And then when her husband got sick, he would go and visit her, and she'd think, why are you doing this when I used to dump things outside your house? Why do you come? He's like, that's what my religion teaches me, and that's how most people become Muslim. The way he cares for others, the way Islam's teachings get to him.
Excellent points, excellent discussion. Thank you so much for coming on the show, inshallah. We hope to see you again. Excellent discussion, excellent exchange, inshallah. And we'll take a break and we'll see you right back. Don't forget to call us, and we'll take your comments on Facebook, and hope to hear from you.
Time to please Allah, a chance to gain reward. I will spend on you, he says.
Reading the Quran is a blessing. Understanding its translation is beautiful. But diving in depth and extracting pearls from it is simply amazing. Do they not ponder upon the Quran? Every week, inshallah, we will dig deep and reflect on the verses of the Quran one by one.
Quran in Depth with Sheikh Ibrahim Zaidan, only on Huda TV.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. You're not giving it to him because he has black eyes or blue eyes. You're giving it to him because of his position. And that is why you're giving it to this particular department's head rather than giving it to the HR GM, for example. Nobody gives the HR GM anything because they don't want anything from him until they want a job. Therefore, this is the way you can judge whether it's a bribe or not. To get into a halal transaction, first of all, the bank or the financial institution should acquire and own this apartment before any commitment.
Time to please Allah, a chance to gain reward. I will spend on you, he says, on all who's spending good cause.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back from the break. That was, mashallah, actually a very nice little discussion there between the guests, mashallah, quite fun. We're going to go over to the Facebook messages actually, and we're just looking at our page,
And if you want to call us, you can call us.
Yeah, please do call us. We were actually expecting a young boy called Abdullah, apparently, was going to give us a call, 11 years old. So inshallah, we hope he will call in.
We're sorry last time that we didn't have enough time to pick up the calls.
Yes, so we'd like to try and call as soon as you can, because I think there was 4 or 5 calls that literally called in the last few seconds, and Oh, we do have a phone call. Oh, this is Abdullah, I think. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, Abdullah.
Abdullah, mashallah.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
You're 11 years old, is that right?
Yeah.
MashaAllah.
We're expecting your call.
We were waiting for your call, mashallah. So, tell us, Abdullah, we've been talking about role models. So, what do you think about this topic? Who's your role model?
My role model is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Okay. What?
And,
carry on.
And my mom.
MashaAllah. So tell me, what have you learned from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that's helped you to be a good boy and to live to do your best and be a good boy as much as you can?
I learned how to be kind and treat people the same as they treat me, and treat my parents with love.
MashaAllah. And have you been enjoying the show?
Yeah.
Do you have a question for us, mashallah?
You have any questions or anything you want to ask us?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I want my father to be my role model, but I never see him. So, how can I ask my father to be more like Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and treat me like my brothers without making him feel bad?
Yeah, good question. That could be, I think, maybe a whole show by itself. I mean, I think it's, being your father, it may be a bit difficult for you to say, out directly, be more like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But maybe there's a way you could maybe find an example in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life, or maybe you can find, there's books out there you can buy in various bookstores where they talk about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he was with his family, and how he was.
There's a good lecture, maybe you can send, for example, a book, as you said, or a link. There's a link called Children on the Messenger. So
okay.
It's a very good link. Find on YouTube or you Google it. You can send it in through an email, just as a gift or something like that, and you can take a lot of.
And you could say to him, maybe you could say to him, Dad or Father or Abui, whatever you call him, and you can say to him, I've been reading a lot about Islam recently on how I have to treat you as your father, because the treatment of the father, Allah mentions in the Quran that after worshipping Him, we have to be good to our parents. So I've been reading about this, and I really want to be a good son. And I came across this. I thought you might find it interesting. It talks about, how parents should treat their children. I was hoping you'd take a listen to it. I thought we could both learn together, so it won't look like you're criticizing him. So something along those lines.
Important. I mean, that's and of course I like to always go from a different perspective as well. But sometimes it just, even if it's an 11-year-old, you might want to just directly talk, And,
yeah, true.
And youth in Medina, they used to go to Umar Khattab radiallahu and talk to him straightly. Like some youth used to say, Omar taqullah, fear Allah.
I think also everyone knows this. I'm sure, Brother Abdullah obviously knows his father.
Right, I need to understand.
I'm sure, whatever the situation may be, maybe he's not that kind of,
right.
He's not that approachable.
So
he can, inshallah, do it from. But that was very nice to hear from Brother Abdullah, mashallah.
Thank you, Abdullah. Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you.
And hopefully we'll hear from him, inshallah, and many others, inshallah, in the future. I've got a comment here from Brother Ali Ahmed, who actually, I believe, did a show himself, the Huda.
Yes,
I think it was Islamic Jeopardy. It was like an Islamic version, a quiz show, I think it was. He said, Assalamu alaikum, Jazakallah khair for such a terrific program. I ask Allah to bless it and make it beneficial for the Muslim youth and the Muslims in general. I would say that the picking of role models starts from the parents and who they imitate and take as role models. So if a father is righteous and takes the pious predecessors and Sahaba, etc., as his role model, in him being a good father, and he fulfills the rights of his wife and kids, then his children will learn this from him and look up to him and those that his father looked up to. Thus, this will create a chain reaction which will lead back to the Prophet ﷺ. So it's very good. I mean, in reality, we can't, if we ourselves aren't taking the right role models, we have parents like that. And I remember the late, mashallah, the very famous Sheikh Al-Albani, rahimahullah, in one of his lectures, he mentioned that someone had come to him and said, "Oh, Sheikh, my 14-year-old son, he's not praying." You know, I tell him to pray, and he's not praying. And I'm beating him, and it's not working. And the Sheikh said, you know, you left the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, who said, from 7, teach your children to pray.
Yes.
And from 10, beat them in the sense of admonish them. Obviously, Islam never teaches you to smack a child, beat a child that will leave, will leave a mark. That kind of hard. It's a way of
taps.
It's that way to make them say how he's angry. It's not the kind of painful beating.
Yes.
So he told them. So then the Sheikh said, you've ignored him all this time, and now all of a sudden he's 14. You're coming and complaining now that he doesn't pray and he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that.
This is something very important, because even when it comes to girls with hijab, girls will reach puberty, and all of a sudden the parents are like, okay, tomorrow you're starting, you're wearing hijab from tomorrow, and the mom's not wearing hijab or something like that, and the father is smoking or anything like that, and then they expect the daughter to to be like the just to be better than them, and to not to repeat the same mistakes. It's not going to happen. You can't just do it now and then. Subhanallah, and it takes time and preparation and showing an example. And subhanallah, and you find many times that obviously what kids do, kids see, kids do. So if they see parents will come and say, "Oh, my son is smoking. Do you smoke?" "Oh, yeah, I'm smoking, but I
always told him it's bad,
Yeah, I always told him it's bad. Don't follow me. What do you think they're gonna do? I mean, they see you, they love you.
But they have that famous thing, and obviously it's complete nonsense, batil. But they have that famous saying like, "Don't do as I do, do as I tell you," or something along those lines.
Right.
Which is it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that.
You will be the children will see you doing it. Even if they don't want to from a young age, they will pick up these habits. I've got a message here, actually from my mother, funny enough, saying to me, good luck with the show. So I just thought I'd give a shout out to my mother, and I hope that she's watching, and I hope, inshallah, that she can, benefit from the show, and inshallah. And actually had a very nice message on my. We've got probably this might be the last comment for the show. Actually, we've got about 2 or 3 minutes, but I wanted to read this from on my page under the same topic. Dina Abu Basha, she says, reading about the Prophet ﷺ made me love him even more. His beautiful characteristics, traits, and the love he had for his ummah. This helped me change in my character, because seeing all of these sacrifices and all the hard work he ﷺ had done for this ummah, how can we not try to at least be more like him and follow his way of life? My advice would be for those who choose anyone else to be their role model, they should read the Prophet's biography and learn more about him, because truly you will love him more than your family and self, as he was sent as a mercy to mankind. SubhanAllah. Right. Very, very nice, really beautiful, very good advice. And that's what we touched upon, isn't it, today's show?
Right. I have also
get to know him.
Some comments here, just so we can kind of squeeze in. There's Anisha Amreen, I would say, and she says, I would like to know the role model of our woman regarding with today's life of working outside our homes, like offices, etc. SubhanAllah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about role models for women in the Quran, it talks about, subhanAllah, specifically about Maryam alayhi salam, Asya, right, which is the wife of Fir'aun, and you find that these women were great women. They're women who worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're women who gave up so much for them. And another one that we know from the women of Jannah is Khadija radiallahu anha, and Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet. And when we look, and I really, I don't want to say my opinions, right? And this is something very important that people have to know, that even myself, we don't call people to our opinions or to our we call here to to the Prophet, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to Islam. So I want our sisters to really go and search and learn about these women, the women of Jannah, and to see what were their characteristics. Why were they at this pedestal? Why did the Prophet, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention it? Why did the Prophet mention it? What was it? Was it their jobs that they were doing? Was it their public speaking skills? Was it their, or what was it about them, that made them who they were? And this is something that you need to go and see. And I think when both brothers and sisters submit to these things, to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed, as for each and every one their role, and that's when things, wallahu alam, will work out better for us. And then there's another comment here that from Medea. It says, I would really like to hear more about how people take his example into extremes. He chooses the easy way when he was given two options, yet some people choose hard ways, and they don't think good of the people who, they don't think as good Muslims are the ones who take maybe the easy option out of two things. What do you think about this, Ismail?
Definitely. I mean, we touched upon that before. We live in a time where, a very judgmental time, a time where people spend their time as if Islam is refutations, as if Islam is looking for mistakes. When we know that many mistakes that maybe mistakes that mistakes that are small mistakes. We're not major mistakes in belief. We know that we should hide the mistakes of our brothers. Even if we see our brother sinning, we're not supposed to expose him. Oh, this particular person, he happens to be an Islamic speaker. Oh my God, he made a sin. God forbid, Like we're supposed to be, people are supposed to be, they can never make mistakes, they can never be weak. And they would run, because it's some internal jealousy, to expose this particular person that he's made this mistake or he's made that mistake, etc. So that's something where, there's definitely a problem. And people need to, people spend their time too much in that these days, Yeah.
And when it comes to the example of the Prophet, people taking into extremes. I mean, if people do more than what the Prophet did, right? And there's a hadith about that. And yes, the Prophet used to fast, but he used to break his fast. Yes, he used to pray qiyam, but he used to sleep, right? So, but I don't think if you're giving two options, obviously he used to pick the easier one. But if the Prophet did something both ways, I mean, I would say that maybe one is easier, one is harder. No one should blame each other for picking, the easier one or for picking the harder one. Wallah, whatever,
I think different situations call for different
ways.
You may know that the situation has arisen where you can take the easy option, and it's for various reasons it makes more sense, and in the long run, and you weigh as best as you can what the outcome could be, and if I take the hard option, it could have A, B, C, D, E effects. So it's not haram. There is this easier option,
right?
Which is still completely fine, but it may cause less of a backlash. Whatever the situation, it could be a personal situation, it could be a family situation, it could be a work situation. So I think it depends on the situation and the time, really.
Alhamdulillah. So we reached the end of our
Inshallah. Inshallah, we'll have another episode, of course, next week. We should be announcing the topic in the next couple of days. Please like our Facebook pages, specifically the show, facebook.com/Time to Please Allah. MashaAllah, we notice now we're up to 800 and something. So it's already gone up in the last 200 or so in the last week. Please spread the word. Please give us a call, guys. We want to hear more from you. MashaAllah, we've got the messages. I know all of you, some of you can't always call. It can be expensive. But the ones, we know that we have a lot of viewers in Dubai, MashaAllah, from the statistics we get. So please give us a call. You guys make the show.
In Nigeria.
A lot of viewers in Nigeria, MashaAllah. That's for sure. MashaAllah, may Allah bless them. But we want some people to give us a call. Let's have more of a dialogue. We know that you, MashaAllah, from the comments we're getting, a lot of you are watching the show. We've had some comments which you didn't get a chance to read, praising the show and enjoying the show and the kind of discussions that go on and the format. So please, get more involved.
And suggest a topic that you want us to talk about. Because that's the whole point. We want to bring relevant things that are not discussed on your regular, Islamic show. And we want to bring these things up. We want to talk about these things, and find some solutions. And
That's right, inshallah.
So we're on our show. Inshallah, give us a shout out on Facebook, and inshallah we'll see you next week, same time, same place, with your host
Ismail Bullock
and your host Gabriel Al-Romaani. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
A chance to gain reward I will spend on you, he says, all who spend in good cause. Good deeds are opportunities, sparkling bright and true. raising you in the sight of Allah and adorning Al-Jannah for you. So rush to earn His reward. Don't forget the oppressed. And when